Number one is cold outreach. Now, cold outreach is the toughest kind of lead generation, but it's also the easiest to get started. And so in this video, I'll be breaking them down in order from easiest to toughest, right? So cold outreach is the easiest thing to do. Now, what is cold outreach? Well, it's the easiest, right? All of you guys watching this can do cold outreach. Is it fun? Heck no, definitely not fun, but you absolutely can do it because cold outreach is reaching out to literally anybody. Anybody that you are capable of contacting, you can do cold outreach for. Now, when we're differentiating, as we jump into the next one, you'll see more of this, but cold outreach is talking to people who don't already know you. So that can be via calling if you want. It can be emails, DMs, whatever it might be. It's those messages you get from people where you're like, who the heck is this guy, right? That's cold outreach. Now, typically speaking, you're gonna be doing cold outreach on platforms like Facebook or Instagram, LinkedIn, whatever it may be, on Skool, where you're reaching out to people that don't know you. And when you're doing cold outreach, trying to find deals, your objective here that everybody fails at is that you are not trying to pitch, right? You're not a salesman. Nobody wants to talk to a freaking salesman, especially over DMs. So when you're doing cold outreach, it's incredibly easy because anybody, you can just click message, right? So that's the simple part. The hard part about cold outreach is that you get a very low response rate, right? How many times do you respond to that rando that reaches out, texts you, DMs you, whatever, and says, hey, I've got this thing? Not very often, right? So there's two things. First is the action of cold outreach. The action of cold outreach is simply DMing, texting, reaching out to anyone and everybody with the objective, the intention of finding deals, right? But there's a lot more to it. So once you can take that first action, the question becomes, how do you take that and make it better, right? How can you improve that to have a better chance of getting deals? And so when you're doing cold outreach, there's a couple things to consider. First of all, if you send 100 cold outreach messages, the average response rate is 10%. Now, of that 10%, how are you gonna get answers that are actually beneficial, right? If you're gonna get almost nobody to answer, then you better get the answers that you do get, they better actually be helpful, right? So the first thing that you can do is ask open-ended questions versus closed-ended questions, right? Open-ended questions, when you're reaching out to people, is asking them things that do not require a yes or no answer. That would be a closed-ended question, right? So an open-ended question might be, what is your name? A closed-ended question would be, is your name Ryan, right? That's the difference. And when you're talking to people, you want to be able to start conversations. You don't want them to be able to give you a flippant response and then move on with their day, because then you barely got anybody to respond in the first place, right? You only got 10% of people to respond, and then of those people, you're not getting anything that's getting you any close to your goals, right? So the first thing that you can do is ask open-ended questions. Now, the next thing you can do is anything that could possibly increase your response rate. So if you want that 10% response rate to go up to 20%, what can you do? Well, simply put, the reason why response rates are so low is primarily because people don't even see your messages, right? It goes into spam, it goes into message requests, it gets rejected, right? Whatever it might be. And so you have to think about, how can I increase the chances of somebody seeing the messages that I'm even sending after you make sure that your messages don't suck, right? And so if your message doesn't suck and you want people to see it, then you have to give them more reasons to look for it, right? When somebody sends you, let's say you put in a thing for a verification code, right? And it says, we sent you a verification code to your email. And you go to your email and you look and you don't see a verification code. What do? You look for it, right? You're like, maybe it went into spam, maybe it went into promotions. Here it is, there's my verification code, go get it. Why? Because it was something you actually wanted. And so if you reach out to somebody and they're not seeing your stuff, then you want to make sure that they know that it even exists, and then they can go look for it. How do you do that? It's by taking that cold lead that's completely cold and giving them more points of contact. An easy way to do this, if you're reaching out to somebody on something like Facebook or Instagram, is for them to recognize your name and for them to know that you sent them something. How do you do that? Interaction, right? Somebody makes a post on Instagram, you comment on their post, hey, I just sent you a message. At the very least, they now know that you sent them a message, right? People do this to me all the time, and I can admit it does work. At least I know the message exists, right? I know that there's something in there. And so when we're talking about cold outreach and finding deals, I could go on forever about the strategies behind cold outreach. In fact, I'll probably make an entire video on it. But for today, we just want to talk about the different methods that you can use. And cold outreach, the importance is first understanding it, which is just reaching out to anybody. It's the lowest barrier to entry, right? Anybody can do this stuff. It does not take any skill. And then making it just 10% better, 10% better. And you're doing that by changing the way that you're asking people questions, by not being a salesman, because nobody wants to talk to a salesman, and then by increasing the likelihood that they even see your message. So if you double the rate of them seeing your message, then you can double the rate of them responding to your message, and then make that a high quality response through the questions and things that you're bringing up and asking those people so that they know how to interact with you. Your objective with cold leads is for the person to get to know who you are and what you do. And that does not happen with a one-off message. That happens through conversation, through relationships, and through transferring this person from a cold lead into our second form of outreach, which, number 2, is warm outreach. Now, warm outreach compared to cold outreach is 10 times more effective. 10 times more effective from cold to warm. Why is that? Because what is the chances that you are going to respond to somebody that's in your contacts in your phone versus a random phone number that reaches out to you, right? What's the odds that you're going to respond to your parents calling you versus a spam number? What's the odds that you're going to respond to your friend sending you a DM that lands right in your inbox on Instagram versus some random company that's trying to sell you crypto, right? That's the difference in warm outreach. So warm outreach, by definition, is you reaching out to people that you already know. And a lot of you guys watching this video, this isn't your first dance in the real estate game, right? You've bought and sold rentals. You've worked with property management. You've done wholesaling, right? All of these different things that can incorporate into the real estate world. And shockingly, transactional lending is incorporated into all of those things, right? Every deal has EMD, wholesalers double close, buyers do Mortgage methods, seller finance, all of these other things. And when those are occurring, transactional lending takes place. And so for you, an easy thing that you can do is think about who are the people I already know that are in the real estate space, right? What are the opportunities that may have already passed me up or might be right in front of my eyes that I'm just not seeing because I don't know what I'm looking for, right? And if you can take the time to think about those things, then you are going to significantly increase between these two. And if I want to give you a visual for that, like I said, for cold outreach, you get about a 10% response rate, right? 10% response rate for cold outreach. For warm outreach, you're going to get, on average, about a 90% response rate, right? Now that's going to fluctuate a little bit based on which type of outreach you're doing. But if you're looking between these two here, right, you can see what? You're going to 9x your effectiveness by reaching out to people you already know, people that have, quote, given you permission to reach out to them versus people that haven't. Warm outreach is how I started and built my transactional lending business. Now, for those of you watching this that say, well, warm outreach may be better, but I don't know anybody, think about how you've met or know anybody that you've ever interacted with in your entire life. It's called going out and putting in the work, right? You go to meetups, you talk to people online, you post videos, you join communities, mentorship, whatever it may be. That's how you meet people, guys. So if you don't have a ton of warm leads, a lot of people say, oh, I don't have any warm leads. I don't know anybody that's a real estate agent or whatever it may be, or I'm new to real estate. So was everybody at some point, right? I haven't even been doing this stuff that long. The way that you increase the number of warm leads to reach out to is by taking these people, right, your cold leads, and making them warm. And that's what I was just talking about at the beginning. That is the best way to go from, I mean, look at the increase. It's ridiculous, right? You take somebody that doesn't know you and you make them know you. You get on the phone with them. You meet up with them. You talk with them more. You get to know their family. You get to know their business, whatever it may be. That conversation over time takes it from a cold to a warm lead. And if you can build those up, then you have a much better database of people to be reaching out to and generating leads. Personally speaking, I started doing this through meetups. Now, 95% of you guys watching this video can absolutely go find a local real estate meetup in your area. I'm sure some of you live in the middle of nowhere somewhere and can't pull this off. That's okay. There's plenty of other options. Don't use it as an excuse. But for those of you that live in any sort of town whatsoever, you can go find real estate meetups. Join Facebook groups. Join Skool communities. Go on meetup.com or whatever it's called and just go find places where meetups are being held and then go to them. It's going to be uncomfortable. Shocker. Everything's uncomfortable that's worth doing. You just got to go do it. And that's how you can create more of these warm leads. That's what I did when I was getting started, to take these warm outreach leads and turn them into deals, right? Now, we are going from easiest to do to hardest to do, right? So we've started with cold outreach, which is reaching out to people you don't already know. A lot of you guys that are struggling to get deals have done that, and you're just not good at it. I don't know how to put that any better. You're not good at it, which is great, because you've taken the action and now you just need to learn how to refine it. Next is your warm leads. This is going to significantly increase your response rate, which means you're going to get more repetitions. You're going to get more objections. You're going to learn how to speak about lending in a light that actually makes sense to other people. Wow, that is so helpful for your business. So many people jump to the cold outreach because it's easy, and then they just skip the warm outreach. It's like, I haven't reached out to them. I'm worried about what they might say. It's a little bit uncomfortable. Yeah, it's going to be, right? But it's incredibly important. Now, number 3 is kind of an iteration of both of these things. So number 3 is referrals. Referrals. Referrals is an incredible way to multiply what you're doing with both cold and warm outreach. My favorite line to drop about referrals is that you reach out to somebody, instead of saying, hey, do you need transactional lending? You say, hey, this is what I do, which means you got to know how to talk about what you do, right? You say, hey, this is what I do. Do you know anybody in your network that would potentially use something like that, or has used it in the past, or could use it in the future, right? They're scaling their business. They're running into these situations. Maybe they've had bad experiences in the past. By doing that, it is the lowest barrier to entry question that you can possibly ask somebody, because I'm not saying, do you need me to help you with lending? I'm saying, do you know anybody who might be able to use my services? And even better, when you're asking those people that, offer them a cut, right? If you know anybody who might be able to use my funds for their double closings, right? And we can build that relationship, I'll pay you a referral fee for every deal, just for making the connection. Now, what does that do? Well, if you go talk to one person via warm outreach, right? Which is a little bit easier to do, and you have the ability to say, hey, do you know anybody? Then you can take that one person and you can turn them into 5 people, 10 people, 20 people, right? There's way more people for them to reach out to. And in so doing, you take that one conversation and you multiply it. If we were to look at all of these things and I was to describe them, cold outreach is 1-to-1, right? Every one person that I reach out to takes 1 outreach from me. Warm outreach, same thing. 1-to-1, right? You reach out to one person and they receive your message. Referrals is kind of your in-between, because somebody may know, let's say they know 20 people, right? Well, in theory, you're now going there goes my chalk. You're going 1 to 20, right? So instead of just reaching out to one person, you're reaching out to one person, that person knows 20 other people, and now you have multiplied your effectiveness in so doing. And referrals is another incredibly underutilized thing. Now, the big thing with referrals, it's true of all of this stuff, but the big thing with referrals is that people don't ask for referrals, or they do and they suck at it. Why? Because they don't know what it is they're offering, or they can't articulate, right? If you were to go tell your mom that you do transactional lending, and if she knows anybody that needs it, to refer them over, do you think she's gonna send you good deals? No, right? She has no idea what you're talking about. But if you can say, hey, look, there's this situation where a wholesaler gets a property under contract and they're required to put down a deposit, and then they're gonna go sell that property to somebody else. And if you ever know a wholesaler that is doing deals like that and they don't have that money for the deposit, I can come in and fund that deposit for them. So if you know anybody in that situation, you can bring them to me. The more clear like that you can be, the better opportunities you're going to have via referrals, especially if people like you or you give them a really good reason to refer it to you, right? Let's say everybody in the world did referrals and you only offer $1 for each deal and everybody else offers 100, well then you're not gonna get any deals, right? Give them a good incentive and also build the relationships to where people want to help you, right? Dude, if I know anybody that ever needs transactional lending, Ryan, I'll definitely send them your way. You've been super helpful to me. I've seen what you're doing. I would be more than happy to help you grow your business. That's the response you're looking for, right? And that's why referrals can be so incredibly effective. Now, we're going for the big kahuna to close things out, right? We started off with 1-to-1 with a very low 10% response rate. We went to 1-to-1 with a much higher, almost 90% response rate, or 9x the effectiveness. Then we jumped to kind of the 1 to in between. I put 1 to 20 here just for reference with our referrals. And now, number 4, the big kahuna, content, AKA the great equalizer, is the way that you can reach infinite amounts of people. If we're following this metric here, content would be 1, I don't even know how to draw this, 1 to infinity, right? Because you can make one post, and if it's good, with maybe a little bit of luck, and you set things up properly, you can reach 1 million people, right? I can't even, it's like 1,000,000x, right? You can spend the same amount of time on this as this, and in theory, instead of reaching one person, you reach 1 million people. Now, are those 1 million people gonna be as qualified of a lead as to reaching out to somebody directly? No, but the point is you have exponential reach. You can reach more people than somebody spending $100,000 a day on ads if you're good at what you're doing, right? And now, are you gonna be perfect with this? No, that's why we started with the easy and went to the hard, right? This is the easy stuff. This is the hard stuff. Now, when I say this is hard, that's all objective, right? Like some people watching this, you may already be really good at content. Others of you can get good at content pretty quickly. You're good at speaking, which by the way, content does not just have to be in front of a camera, right? You can be writing things down. There's a lot of different ways to produce content. Content is anything that can be consumed by somebody else. And when you're starting off, you can do all that for free to make it even more effective. But it is 1 to infinite amounts of people. So your strategies significantly change. The way that you reach people can just broaden times 1,000,000, which is crazy to think about. And so these are the 4 ways that I am finding deals and generating leads right now. And none of these 4 things require you to have superpowers, right? They don't require you to be special. They just require you to take action. And I know a lot of you guys watching this may have tried one or maybe all of these things before, and you're struggling to find success. The first step is taking action on these things. That's step 1. Step 2 is refining that action. The way that I look at it, that I've been taught, is to do more and then do better. More, better. So the first step is, you say you're doing a lot of cold outreach. What is a lot, right? Are you actually doing a lot of cold outreach, or do you just get tired after 10 minutes? Once you figure out, hey, I'm actually putting in the work and my cold outreach just sucks, then you don't have to do more. Now you need to do it better, right? You need to refine what you're saying. You need to refine who you're saying it to. You need to change the process of getting them to see what you're doing. And you can take all of those little steps to improve your success rate on them, because the reality is, not only is this one hard, but it's gonna be a longer, slower burn, right? Making content is not an overnight thing for the most part. Cold outreach, on the other hand, you can in theory reach somebody that needs funding that day, right? So way lower leverage, but a better chance of getting a deal quicker, which is why when we're talking about this inside of FundWise, what you wanna be doing is doing multiple of these things, right? If you're gonna set up content, do some cold outreach or some warm outreach or some referrals in between so that you have the time to build up the content to where it's more effective. Then it will overtake these other things, and then you can do less of those and more of this, or vice versa, depending on which one has been most effective based on data and not based on your discomfort or your time or anything else. So these are the 4 ways that I generate leads. All of you can copy this exact same thing. Now, the last thing that I want to cover in this video is the effectiveness of these 4 things in your business, because I know some of you guys watching this right now have a ton of time. Some of you guys watching this right now have a ton of experience, and some of you watching this right now might have a ton of money. And each one of you might want to approach these 4 things differently. So next, I'm going to be breaking down what I call kind of like the quadrant of leverage for which one is going to be most effective for you. So to close this thing out, I just want to show you guys my outreach quadrant so that you have a little bit better visualization as to what I was just talking about. So this quadrant is breaking down the 4 methods of finding deals that we just talked about, from easy to hard, from low leverage to high leverage, where we're defining leverage as the amount of output you get for the input that you put in, right? So if you send one thing out and you get 1 response back, then that's a lot lower leverage than if you send one thing out and you get 1,000,000 responses back, right? Business is a game of leverage. And so our goal over time is to increase our leverage and spend less of our time, right? We're all working towards that. Now, the big thing here is also understanding the time constraints and your abilities and everything I just talked about, right? Whether it's time, experience, money. And so I want to talk about that in respect to this. Now, the first thing, the lowest leverage, the easiest thing, AKA probably not the best one, right, is our cold outreach. So our cold outreach right here is going to be easy, low leverage, but all of you guys can do it, right? Now the next one is going to be hard and low leverage, because cold outreach, right, you can literally send a message to any human being on the planet that has a social media account and you can do cold outreach. It could not get any easier. Now, harder but still low leverage is gonna be your warm outreach, right? Why? Because it's harder to have people that are warm, right? People that are in your contacts, people that follow you, people that are actually going to have a higher response rate. It's harder to pull off. It's still lower leverage because both of these fall into that category of one-to-one, right? One outreach, one response. So easiest, lowest leverage is cold. Next leg up is hard, but still low leverage. That's warm outreach. Now let's go to easier, higher leverage. And this is gonna be our friend referrals, right? In the same amount of effort it takes to do a warm outreach, you can reach out to somebody warm, but instead of asking them if they need anything, if they need transactional lending, if they have deals, you're asking them if they know other people that have deals. So this becomes a simpler form. Why? It's really a fantastic combination because the warm I'm defining as hard for you, right? So why does warm outreach, but asking them for a referral instead become easy? Because you're not asking them directly, right? It lowers that barrier. Instead of that awkward encounter where they feel like they have to be like, oh no, I don't have anything for you right now. I don't know what you're saying, whatever. You're taking that difficulty, making it easier by just saying, do you know anybody who does need blank, right? That makes it easier and it heightens your leverage because you can reach out to one person and they can reach out to multiple people. And then your final hardest one, but highest leverage by far is content, right? So this is the visualization that you guys can look at to determine what you should be doing, and more importantly, the outputs that you can expect from doing those things. If you are somebody that is watching this video right now and has a ton of time, I don't know, maybe you quit your job. For me, it was when I stopped wholesaling, right? I had a ton of time. Cold outreach, easiest, lowest leverage. It's a great place to start. You're gonna get objections, you're gonna mess things up. You can reach out to so many people that nobody gives a crap, right? So if you're in that boat, cold outreach, fantastic. If you have a ton of money, then easily you can jump to content. Why? Because you can pay somebody to help you do it, right? Content becomes way less hard if somebody is telling you exactly what to do. I wish I had somebody that just always told me exactly what to do and I didn't have to come up with all this stuff for you guys on my own because that would be way easier, right? So if I had a ton of money, I could just do that instead. It would be really easy, right? Now the last one is experience. There's three prongs, right? You got a ton of time, you got a ton of money, or you got a ton of experience. If you're somebody watching this that has a ton of experience, maybe you've done a lot of lending in the past, you've worked as maybe a loan officer or something else in this field, you've been a wholesaler, whatever it might be, these two are what you can go to, your warm leads and referrals. Why? Because they're gonna be higher leverage activities that also, in that case, require you to have a better understanding of what you're talking about. And if you have experience and know what you're talking about, then you can effectively generate referrals, right? Because you know what to offer them. You know what the market expects. You know what they expect. You can have high quality conversations with warm leads where they actually know what the heck you're talking about. And so if you are somebody watching this video right now, I encourage you to figure out which of those things you are. And some of you may not have a lot of any of those things, but whether you have a ton or little, you have the most of one of them, right? There's always one that's higher than the others. So whether that's experience, time, or money, you can take that and figure out where to start on your lead generation journey. And then more importantly, once you get started, you'll have this really cool thing called data on what actually is working. And then you don't have to guess, right? You just go do whatever's already working. You try other things, you get new data, you watch what other people are doing, you mix it all together, and you build an insanely profitable business in transactional lending. I know a lot of you guys are struggling with it, but this is a great start. And if you're somebody that is looking to get into this further and actually commit to transactional lending, I have a free 4-hour masterclass on everything we just talked about, except it's 4 hours long, going way more in depth on my exact systems and process I use to build my business. You can click the first link below, get that masterclass, and I'll see you guys in the next one.